Good morning, everyone.
Welcome to another episode of Trina and
Pierre.
Today we're going to be covering our two top favorite destinations in Southeast Asia. Since we've been traveling, everyone's asked us, where should I go? So we're going to cover Indonesia and the Philippines.
Now there is something very important to know before you start watching that video is to understand where we went so you can have a better understanding of why we're giving you those tips. And also we'll be covering in that video the cost, the food you can get, how traveling is around, and the safety. So if you're interested in all that and you're hesitating between one country or the other, or you want to do both, which we highly recommend obviously, well, this video is for you, so let's get right into it. We spent a month in the Philippines and it was absolutely insane. It was just like on postcards. So we arrived in Cebu City and headed straight to that tiny island surrounded by turquoise blue water that is called Bantayan. Now imagine here, it's super chilled. First of all, it's tiny. You can go around the island in maybe an hour. It is chill level 100, I'm telling you. And we got the amazing experience on the first Filipino beer to witness a Filipino proposal happening right in front of our eyes. That was insane. So once we were done with Bantayan Island, experiencing the local life on that island and meeting awesome, super friendly kids, where did we go to, Trina?
So we headed off to this place called Gigantes Islands, and honestly, we've never heard of this place until we landed in the Philippines. Pierre saw a video of the place and we just said, we have to go there. It looks magnificent. We headed over and then there was the Thai food. So we ended up stranded, not even in Gigantes, but this town called Estancia in Iloilo happened to become one of the most memorable experiences that we had. We were somewhat taken in by locals. So they showed us around, they took us to restaurants, they took us out, they recommended an amazing place where we can go ahead and stay. We explored the local markets, did it fun. It was so fun doing that food tour of the local market there.
Nice.
And
highly recommend
that was probably a highlight that we didn't expect. We finally got to Gigantes, and here, this is a tour that everyone needs to go onto. I was so surprised that there were so few tourists there.
It's super local
crazy.
experience. Like 90% of the tourists there are Filipinos.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So a lot of people, they go to Palawan, and that is spectacular in its own, of course, but we would advise you, if you are in that area, definitely check out Gigantes as well. So after Gigantes, I had this mastermind plan.
Oh my
I was
God,
going to
yes.
freaking swim with turtles. I heard of this island called Apo Island, and it was an absolute must to do for me. And I don't think I told Pierre. I was just like, oh yeah, there's some sort of Apo Island that we need to go to, no big deal. I ended up taking him on this 16-hour journey when I usually hate that, but I was determined to get there.
It was absolutely beautiful, but I had to head back again before another typhoon would hit. Yes, because we were during a little bit the wrong season, I would say, but it did not alter our experiences at all. We got to Bohol, and Bohol is a total different universe. It's like very big island with hills, super famous for their chocolate hills, but also maybe not everyone knows about it, but there are a lot of waterfalls on that island, and those waterfalls are absolutely beautiful, and it's a blast to go play in those waterfalls. We went waterfall chasing.
That was probably one of my most memorable experiences from Bohol, was spending Christmas there with our friends and going waterfall chasing and just jumping in like little kids. That was
so nice.
Sick.
Next, after Bohol, we headed towards an adventure on its own. We basically took the local transportation from Bohol to Surigao City. And just to put you in context, we had to take a bus, one ferry, another bus, private taxis, another ferry. It was a crazy journey, but we loved every bit of it. Now, once we got into Surigao City, we reached an area that is called Sohoton, which is basically south of Surigao.
One of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful place that I have ever been to inside Southeast Asia and outside of Southeast Asia. I mean, we stayed at this private cove with our friends. There was no one around. You could go snorkeling off the beach. We took a one-day tour to Sohoton Cove, like you said. In the park, swimming with the jellyfish.
It's
out
like
of this world.
It's like the best postcard you've ever seen. You know those places you only dream of. This is exactly what it looked like for me. That was just absolutely insane. Now, after that magical experiences, we also experienced a bit more of the city life, whether it was in Cebu, discovering the different malls, or in Manila, going on food tours. That was our experience in the Philippines. Let's talk about what we experienced in Indonesia and where we went so that it gives you a quick idea of what you might want to experience there too. So Trina, where did we start?
Okay, so we started off in Bali. We headed straight off to Ubud, and Ubud for me was the place that I needed to go when I saw pictures of rice terraces, when I saw pictures of the hills, the sunsets, overlooking the river. This is something that I've always wanted to experience, and we definitely got that. But we also experienced some things that I didn't expect. For example, the city itself was a lot more crowded, had lots more tourists than I thought. I don't know why I thought it was going to be a small village, but 80% of the tourists who actually come to Indonesia stick solely to Bali. Well, we didn't want to stick solely to Bali, so we headed off to our next destination, which was Lombok.
And Lombok is insane. Basically, Lombok might be Bali in the past, I don't know. I went there in 2011, and when I went back, I still had that great feeling. Now imagine, it has a volcano that's 3,800 meter high, which is maybe 10,000 plus feet. It is gigantic, and it has waterfall all around the island that are beautiful, much less crowded than on Bali. You can literally go around the island maybe over a week with your scooter and experience completely different parts, from tropical beaches to mountainous areas to getting stuck in the fog in the mountain, going to a surf town in the south of Lombok. Now, heading over to the next island on the east, which was, Trina?
It was Sumbawa. So we headed off to West Sumbawa because Sumbawa is massive.
From snorkeling to kayaking to surfing to trekking in the mountains around, there is so much you can do over there, and you're gonna be most likely on your own because there is no one. We went to that awesome resort called Whales and Waves, and that was the only place you could sleep in the whole area. Magical, it's just incredible, and you have the view on the volcano on the other side. Anyway, you have to go there and experience it for yourself. Now, if you're even more adventurous and you're really feeling like spending a lot of time in transport, like me, well, you can head all the way to the Komodos by crossing Sumbawa Island. I crossed the whole island on Sumbawa. Took me forever, but it was a great experience, like super local. I only met 3 other foreigners, tourists on my way there, on my 36-hour adventure. When I got to Komodos, it was just as good as I remembered it 7 years ago. Now it's getting built a lot, but you can still experience the magical islands of the Komodos and the incredible diving. It's one of the best diving spots in the world, and if you get there on clear water days, it is just insane. From turtles to sharks to manta rays, you can see it all in the Komodos. And the small islands, they have the dragons on there, big lizards, pretty cool. I loved it. We also discovered another island which is between Bali and Lombok, where we went to meet our friends, and it's called the Nusa Island. So you've got Nusa Nusa Penida, and Nusa Chinigan. So those islands are just magical, just super magical. Few people go there at the moment. It's getting more and more popular, but if you can go now, highly recommend it. Nusa Penida is the biggest of all of them, and that's where you see the very famous...
There you go, the T-Rex. I was just gonna say, if you don't know what Nusa Penida is, you surely have seen this photo everywhere.
So this is where you can experience it, but it's not just that. Nusa Penida has awesome snorkeling. You can see turtle, crystal blue water.
You went diving there as well.
Yeah, you can dive, go with the manta rays. It's just insane.
What about that?
And highly recommend you rent a scooter and explore the rest of the island where very few people go.
Do you remember when the manta ray was like a meter from me?
No.
Okay, I was a meter away from the manta ray. It was amazing.
You had no camera and I wasn't there.
Doesn't matter, it was amazing.
Anyway, now that we're done explaining to you where we went so you have a good idea of what we experienced, how we experienced it, we want to give you a few recommendations, like the cost, why you should go in a place versus another, and also maybe talk a little bit about safety. I think that's always something good to touch on.
Yes.
Alright, let's do it like that. Trina, why would you go to the Philippines, basically? I think that's a good question.
A huge reason is the people, the kindness of the people. What I liked about it is because it's not that explored when you talk about, compared to Thailand, compared to Indonesia. People still have the spirit of, let me show you my country, simply because I'm so proud and so welcoming. It feels less transactional than the other countries that I've been to. The other thing is that I feel you have many more off the beaten path places that you can safely explore because the country is so vast. It has so many islands. You can literally go to a place like us in Gigantes and feel like you are the only tourist there, and it's mind-boggling. Also, traveling itself. What I mean by that is transport on the local boats, bancals, on ferries, on boats. Traveling with the locals in the Philippines is such a unique experience. What I love about it is that tourism isn't so built up there, so that you still don't have that separation between tourists and locals, and that really adds to the I don't know, the kind of genuine experience that you want when you travel to a country. So those are my top 3 reasons for visiting the Philippines. What about you, Pierre?
Well, for me, I think reason number 1 is that the Philippines has some of the most beautiful islands I've ever seen in the world. It's just incredible. It's just like those National Geographic tiny islands surrounded by turquoise blue water and like patches of green on the deep blue and like atolls and corals, and oh my god, it is just so beautiful. Now another thing is that another reason might be that the Filipinos all speak English, and that is gold if you're traveling. If you've been to countries where you can't speak with the locals, you understand how your experience is totally different. Now imagine you can go in any village and always speak with people, ask them how they're doing, how is their village, understand a bit more the culture, what's behind it. And yeah, that part really brings the experience from tourist versus local to, oh, we're more human and we can talk together. And that, I just love that. To be honest, that was a big highlight for me.
I think so too, definitely.
All right, Trina, but now I want to know why you would go to Indonesia. But before I let you answer, can you guys, if you've been to any of those countries, let us know in the comments what you think. Why would you go to one country, or why would you go to the other? What would you either expect to experience or have you experienced? Trina, let's go, Indonesia.
All right, Indonesia. So why I would go? Honestly, I would go for the affordable luxury. So before, I mean, maybe some of you know my parents are from Thailand. Thailand used to have affordable luxury. Now it's becoming more rare. In Indonesia, you can still have these amazing hotels, amazing amenities, amazing location for a relatively good price if you're coming from a home country like maybe France or the United States. You have accommodation ranging $10, and it was still very, very, very good accommodation. If you were paying maybe 40, 50, then you'd get something really nice in the middle of a rice field. And then if you want to spend 100 more, I mean, these can be luxury hotels.
Yeah, we'll drill into the cost after, and you will see that's one of the big good point about Indonesia.
Yeah, I would say too, and maybe there's a reason that 80% of the tourists come to Bali. It's very easy to get around from an international perspective. So you come in, you don't want to take a whole bunch of local flights because maybe you just have 5 days as a holiday and then you have to fly in and out. Staying in Bali, experiencing Ubud, the diversity, that center of the island versus the north of the island versus the south of the island, and the beaches, diversity all within a short amount of like time and distance to get there, especially Nusa Penida. So if you are coming to Bali, this is a place that 100% go there because it literally takes less than, I don't know, 30 minutes to get there on a speedboat. So that's one of the reasons that I definitely go to Indonesia if I was short on time.
So I think for me, Indonesia represents really a huge country. And so it's very important to remember I'm talking about the islands between Bali and Flores, basically. And what I really loved is the diversity in the landscape. So I'm a photographer, so obviously, and you can see on Instagram the different photos I have, it's really about that diversity. When you're in Bali, it's very tropical, dark greens and black sand beach water. But then the moment you're going towards the east, towards Lombok, it changes slowly. And once you get in the Komodos, there it gets super dry. So it's totally different landscape. You don't have all the coconut trees and all the palm trees that you have in Bali. It's different landscape. It's dry. It looks like a different world just within an hour flight from Bali. And that to me is very unique. That's something I really love. I also love the fact that there are super high mountains. And it means you can go from toes in the sound to the top of a mountain that's 3,800 meter plus in just a matter of a few hours. And that is a really unique experience because once you're on top, you can also see the ocean.
Oh, what?
Volcanoes, exploring, discovering volcanoes. If you've never seen a volcano before, Indonesia is the place for you to go and really go explore volcanoes. There's so many things you can see.
Another thing that I was thinking about is if you're thinking of moving somewhere in Southeast Asia, maybe you're a digital nomad or an entrepreneur, Indonesia would probably be a great place to choose simply because of the community that's there. And that's something that we noticed. You'd meet people from all over the world who end up basing themselves there, whether it's for 3 months or 3 years. There really is that creator feeling.
Now that we've pointed out why you want to go to Indonesia or the Philippines, now the real question that you might have is, what about the cost? Well, let's talk about money, guys. In terms of money, it's pretty straightforward. First of all, let's face it, if you're coming from a country like the US or if you're coming from Europe, it is going to be much cheaper for you to travel. But Indonesia, in my opinion, is a little bit cheaper than the Philippines. There are a few reasons. The food in Indonesia, we could eat locally, like amazing, delicious food full of veggies and really cooked on the spot for basically 75 cents per plate. So we would have a whole meal together for less than $2 with drink. Now, you could also go and splurge and pay dishes that you would pay maybe $15, $20, $30 at home. You could pay them actually maybe between $5 and $10 in Indonesia, which was really good, with great standard, I would say. The level is just excellent. Now in the Philippines, I would say that our average cost per meal for eating locally was between $2.50 and $5 depending on the island, because some are more remote. It's gonna cost you a little more to get the food. That is kind of normal in my opinion.
But also I think we noticed this in Bohol. Bohol was probably the most expensive place that we've been to, simply because it was just built out more. So in that case, you're gonna get
the south part, Panglao.
Alona Beach.
Yeah.
And then I've heard the same thing for Palawan as well. So when you're comparing those two places, you're probably gonna get something that's the elevated price of Bali maybe. Or
yeah, and there is something I noticed is that actually in the Philippines, when it was just for tourists, it was still very difficult to find the tiny local place where the shop in the street where you would eat. Versus in Indonesia, the two were mixing together very, very nicely. So you could be in the most trendy place in Bali and still have that 75 cent $1 plate at lunch, and that is really nice. Now, if you're a big party guy or girl, there is something to know. I think I would go to the Philippines, guys. The booze is so cheap. You can get a bottle of rum for less than $1 basically, and the beer is really cheap. It's great. I love their local beers. This is the local beer in the Philippines. It's called San Miguel, and they have different versions. They have a light one, they have a Pilsen. You can find very cheap beer and alcohol, which is great if you want to party, if you want to buy a few for the village and just go party with everyone around you. Alright, once you're done partying, obviously you need a place to sleep, and that gets really interesting. So the Philippines is surprisingly not that cheap for sleeping. I think our accommodations were between $15 and $45 a night, so for 2 people, and those were good. But we've been blown away by the places to sleep in Indonesia, meaning you can get from basic to luxury. If you're in Bali and Lombok, those places are actually really comfortable and really nice. We have that video, $10 versus $210 in Bali, in Ubud. You can watch it, you will see the difference. $10 is actually impeccable, it's beautiful. Lombok is the same in most places you will go. Now, once you go in more remote places, that might get, the standard is gonna go down a lot and the prices are gonna stay the same. But because there is so much competition on Bali, Lombok, that area, well, actually the standard is amazing.
So moving on to ease of travel, guys. There is always an option, no matter what type of transport you want to take, meaning that these are both islands. You're going to maybe want to fly around if you don't have a lot of time. Otherwise, if you have a lot of time and you want to save a bit more money, you're going to do it the local way. You're going to take local boats, you're going to take ferries, and if you're like Pierre, you're going to take a 36-hour bus ride across the island of Sumbawa to reach Flores. It almost was. It was at least like 24 hours? I don't know.
The ferry was long too. But yeah, what we're trying to say is if you want the local experience, take the local transport. It's amazing. I mean, it's not more dangerous than the ones you pay a lot of money for, because in 2011, the one I paid a lot of money for sank. So it was a speedboat between Bali and Gili, did sink, and then I took only local boats and I never had a problem since. So just keep that in mind.
And then also when you're thinking about transport, understanding how long and how much amount of time you have to spend in the country. So if you're flying into the Philippines or Indonesia, pick your locations carefully, because you don't want to pick two locations that are complete opposite ends of the country, because this might not allow you enough time.
And I think while we're talking about transportation, we can straight go on to safety, because safety might be a big concern of you. You might have seen articles about the Philippines or stuff about the volcanoes in Indonesia and all that. So as tourists, usually you're not affected by the political problems a country might be affected by. So that is something to remember. I have a specific video on the Philippines and safety. Feel free to go watch it. You will see basically we had a great experience, super friendly people, never felt unsafe, but you have to use common sense.
Yeah,
like, don't
keep
leave
your wits.
Yeah, keep your valuable with you. Don't show them to everyone. Don't like flash your money, like, you know, like, be mindful if you have very expensive gear in you in poor areas. That is always something to be mindful of. Now, this goes the same in Indonesia, but there was an area, South Lombok, you do have to be a bit more careful.
That's what I would advise, because it was actually the locals who advised us to be a little bit more careful in this area. So before, there wasn't a lot of development for tourism. Tourism just started to boom within the last 10 years. And they've had some issues in the past with petty thief, usually robbing people at night. So the locals are like, listen, if you go to these areas, you need to be mindful, come back before sunset. And really, if the locals are telling you this, take their advice. That's what I would say. Don't be like, oh, it's not gonna happen to me, honestly.
This is for South Lombok, around Kuta area. Okay, do not generalize it. The rest was cool for us, but South Lombok, we had friends, they were just behind us on the scooter. We came back at night and they did get like jumped on and someone grabbed the bag and all that. Stuff. Yeah. So it's getting better over time by speaking with the people, but always be careful. Never let your guard down for any reason, and that is very easy actually for yourself to be like, oh, it's fine. No, if locals tell you be careful at night,
that's the key.
Be careful. It's not a joke usually. Overall safety, to be honest, there might be less robbery than in Paris. So no, it's true. I mean,
that's true.
I'm from Paris, Rome, all the cities are super famous for petty theft.
At the end of the day, no matter where you're traveling, whether that be your home country or Southeast Asia, you always need to be careful. Keep your wits, and if there are locals warning you, like Pierre said, yes, pay attention. Alright guys, we hope that you enjoyed the video. That is our recap. 2 of our favorite destinations in Southeast Asia. Honestly, we wouldn't hesitate to go back to either of these countries. If you're planning a trip to these countries, check out our blog, because there we're gonna have more tips, resources, all the places that we actually gone there are listed on the blog, including the budget and places that we've slept at, accommodation.
Oh yeah, and subscribe to the channel, because we've got a bunch of playlists also of those places, and I think those are very helpful.
Filipino
if you want
playlist,
to feel
Indonesia playlist,
a feel of each place, like really the vloggy type, like in immersion in the culture. If you want to see that, this is the videos you want to be looking at.
All right, so Trina and Pierre around the world. We're going to be traveling to many more destinations. We hope to see you with us, and we hope that you're following us on our journey.
So make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. It's going to make a huge thing. It's going to be amazing, and we will see you in the next episode. Guys, have an amazing day, and remember, make the most of your time on this planet. You never know when it ends. See you guys. Bye.